Hi there, this is Juriaan from Meel. I've been asked to contribute to this event with a short presentation about the concept of activity-based work, which I'll do so from my kitchen table here in Copenhagen, Denmark. I've been asked to give this presentation because I'll soon publish the second edition of my book, which is called The Activity-Based Working Practice Guide. First in English later this month, but later this year also in Estonian, which I'm proud of and I consider as pretty cool. But before I go into the topic of activity-based working, let me place this topic into the context of the crisis, the pandemic that we're currently experiencing. The massive wave and the need to work from home that we're currently experiencing has kickstarted a fierce debate about the future of the office and workplaces in the future, but actually in the near future. What's going to happen about when the virus recedes? And in this debate, there are, as often, two sides. There's a side who believe that our current experience will lead to what you could dramatically say the death of the office, or the end of the office, or as The Guardian wrote, the end of an era, the age of the office is over. So some kind of dystopian picture that the office will disappear and that we'll all work from home happily ever after, or sort of. There's another side in the debate that says, things will pass. Once the virus recedes, we'll go back to the office. It's a narrative that can be heard, in particular, interestingly enough, on the side of real estate agents and obviously also on office architects. But there's also a valid narrative on that side, which says that the office remains a very efficient place to facilitate social interactions within organizations, that the office is a place for cultural processes, for learning, for the exchange of ideas, for creating social cohesion and creating a sense of belonging. So these are two narratives, one about the office and the other about the end of the office, you could say. I'm not a futurist, but I would say that everything points towards a future in which both sides are actually true. That we're moving towards what you could call a hybrid situation, where people do not work from either the office or from home, but from both and actually other places as well. And I would like to stress that this is by no means a new idea, but it's getting a lot of attention. It seems it's a trend that's being accelerated right now. There's different predictions about how this may play out. I recently saw the 2+2+1 scenario, that on an average, people would in the future work 2 days from home, 2 days at the office and 1 day elsewhere. But this is obviously, it will differ from organization to organization. It will differ depending on your personal preferences. It will differ on the basis of the kind of work that you're doing. So there's different scenarios possible, and they will probably all be true depending on the context that you're in. But if I circle back to the concept, to the topic of activity-based working, what's perhaps most important, that if this is indeed going to happen, that we'll see changes in where work is happening, is that the occupancy or the utilization of the office will further go down. Already before the pandemic, it was received wisdom that, on an average, a traditional workstation and in an office building is only occupied 40% of the time that it's available. And if indeed we're moving towards a more hybrid way of working, these occupancy levels will go further down. And this makes the business case for activity-based working, which is very much about the sharing of workspaces, and thus also space efficiency, almost irrefutable. Both from an economic and a sustainability point of view, it will be hard to justify to create these huge glazed, air-conditioned office blocks if they are underutilized. And that's one of the things that activity-based working tries to solve by the sharing of space. It's important to stress, however, that it's not just about sharing space. It's not just about efficiency. Equally important, if not more important, is that it's a way of working that is very much focused on the idea of giving people choice, giving people options, and giving them more autonomy to decide where and when and how they work. So it actually fits quite neatly into this trend of hybrid working or the increase of working from home. Its focus, however, is on the office. And if you look at a traditional office, there's not so much choice. It's either an open plan office, or some organizations still have cellular offices. It's you have your fixed position. And the whole idea of activity-based working is that you provide different kind of settings for different kind of activities. Hence also the name activity-based. So you have your average desk work, but you may also have want to go to a place where you can have private phone calls. Sometimes you may want to do heads down work, focus work. Maybe you're working in projects. You'll have casual meetings, perhaps even more so in the future when you're doing your individual tasks from home. You will have formal meetings, depending on the type of work philosophy that you have in your company or your organization. You may have stand-up meetings and scrum meetings, and perhaps the office. Sometimes you just want to hang out after a couple of days from home. There's different possibilities, and the notion is to provide this diversity of settings. In this, perhaps it's good to point out that this is, to some people, this is a new notion, but as a concept, it's actually quite old. This is an image of the Office of the Future, as it was called, at the end of the 1980s in Finland, digital. It was one of the first to do an experiment with this concept of sharing workspaces and providing a more greater diversity of spaces. Just look at the computers, but they were trying, and it was actually working. This is an image from Ericsson, Stockholm, in the end of the 1990s. The same concept. At the time, we called it the non-territorial office, but the principles were the same. And look, how clumsy it was at the time. We were carrying around lots of stuff. People were coming into the office, and then they would go to what we call the garage, and they would get a trolley in which they stored all their stuff, still lots of paper, heavy computer, and there weren't any mobile phones yet. They had what they call decked phones that only worked inside the office and had to be shared. So the concept has been around for decades, but it was also a bit clumsy. It was perhaps not very practical. And since then, we've moved, of course, a long way. If you look at contemporary activity-based offices, the stuff that we're carrying is a laptop in our bag, probably a set of headphones, your own coffee cup, and that's it. So it's easier somehow. The existing technology has made this concept of moving around, being mobile, not being tied to one place, make this concept more easy to do. And this is actually a picture from a project in Finland, from Senaatti, the Finnish public real estate provider. And I think it's interesting to see that in countries like Finland and the Netherlands, activity-based working is now de facto, the standard solution for government offices. As said, this is a finished project. You can look at the website of Senati. For each new project, they also proudly communicate on the website how much money they've saved with this concept, space savings of 20–30%. But this is a Dutch project, which is interesting in the sense that in the Netherlands, activity-based working is by the Dutch government also tied to the concept that they don't build buildings for specific ministries anymore, but you have these generic government buildings where people from different departments and agencies and ministries can walk in and use workspaces. So it's very much focused to an overall flexibility of the entire real estate portfolio. This is a Danish project, the Danish property agency, which is featured in the book. They're the first, and they're practicing what they preach, so to say. So they've applied the concept to their own offices and use that as a showcase for the rest of the organization. This is a project in London from the British government. So in the book there's different examples from different countries, and there's also wide diversity in how the concept is being interpreted and how things are designed with different solutions. So there's, in that sense, it's not a formula. It's an idea. It's a concept that can be applied in many different ways. I would not like to suggest, by the way, that it is some kind of success formula. The book is not a sales brochure, nor is this a sales pitch for activity-based working. In the book, we look at experiences from lessons from practice, but there's also an overview of the scientific literature about this topic. And from the scientific literature, which is based on lots of evaluations, post-hoc evaluations of activity-based projects, we know that activity-based working is not necessarily a success. You really have to do it right to make it into a success. And in the book, I explained the different things that can be learned, but I've put the most important notions perhaps in the coming slides. So one of the things that research shows is that on the whole, people in activity-based working tend to be quite happy, especially with this notion of choice and the increase of autonomy. The number one problem that they're experiencing is distractions and noise. And I think that has to do with the fact that falsely, activity-based working is very much connected to the concept of open workspaces, which isn't right, actually. I mean, the whole idea of activity-based working is that you provide different settings for different kind of activities. So you also have to cover, activities that require deep thinking and concentration. So, but the earlier projects, the first projects tended to be very open. But I think, you have to really look carefully at acoustics, at providing different kind of spaces. You have to look at the zoning of office floors, creating buffers, a separation between the noisy social spaces and spaces where people work that require quiet and less distractions. This is problem number one, but I would say it's a solvable problem. What we also know from research is that office workers who are mobile and who have a large task variety, they tend to be more happy with activity-based working than those that are more sedentary. So to put in simple terms, if you're in office working and you're doing desk work in 5 days a week and there's little variety in your activities, then you're probably most happy with having your own desk. But this starts to shift, as soon as people are moving from meeting to meeting. And I'm also really interested in that sense how the current wave of working from home is going to impact on people's mobility. The more mobile, the less space attached people are, the more natural it is to work in an activity-based office. What we also know from research, but also from practice, is that the implementation of this concept can be quite a challenge. That is because, of course, it's a change. Change is always difficult, but it's also a change that touches upon deeply rooted norms and values about territoriality, about privacy, in relation to management. It also touches upon traditional notions of status within an organization, having your private office, having your corner office. And these psychological, cultural issues can be quite a challenge. And we know that change management sounds like an extremely fluffy concept, but it is key. And if I were to translate what it is, it simply means talking and involving the people who will be affected by this change. This is a lesson that a message that I heard in all the cases. The more involved people are, the higher the chances of success. And in this change management process, there's a very important role of looking or addressing the people's practical concerns. Office users, when they hear about the concept, they have rightly certain concerns. They have concerns about the indoor climate and the acoustics, which I said earlier. Acoustics tends to be a problem, surprisingly enough, because we know how to deal with it. People have practical concerns about, where they should leave their stuff. They have concerns about ergonomics. I have back problems. I have a special chair, or how can I make sure that the desk is at the appropriate height for me? Hygiene, that's certainly an issue right now. Sharing desks, sharing workspaces with others is a bit of a difficult issue right now. So, activity-based working requires loads of cleaning, easy to clean workstations, plenty of tissues, antibacterial spray, and at this moment you should probably not say that you should share throughout the day, but you can say you can book a desk for a day and then it's being cleaned in the evenings, and tomorrow you can share another workspace if you wish to. There's concerns about the office etiquette, how people will behave in the office. Will people actually move around, or are they going to occupy a quiet space and giving no possibilities to others? This is an issue that really needs to be addressed at a work floor level. And then there's a concern about, will I still be able to find my colleagues if everybody is all over, or perhaps working from home? Will there be a desk for me at the office? Well, again, this is something that can be solved. There's a lot of smart office technologies, people finders, desk finders available for people's phones. But these are the kind of stuff that needs to be addressed, the kind of stuff that needs to be solved. And in that sense, I think that activity-based working is more demanding for the real estate providers. You really have to provide a frictionless, excellent work environment. And that's also why in the second edition of the book, we've added an appendix with functional and technical requirements for activity-based offices. This is just an example of a page of this appendix where we outline and say, what are the different kind of spaces, and say, what are the requirements for visual comfort, acoustics, sizes, thermal comfort, what kind of fixtures, fittings, and furnishings should be placed in these kind of spaces to make them useful to office workers. And I notice actually that quite a large number of the speakers today is focusing on the digitalization of construction processes and design processes. So I also want to say that it's not just in the book, all these specifications. There's also a database, an online database with the specifications, with the same specifications, in which the different kind of settings and spaces for activity-based working are defined as objects. And each of these objects has specifications as properties or parameters with going into quite a level of detail. And the whole idea is that by really being rigorous and systematic about these specifications, that they can be used as input for BIM design processes, for generative design, or that things could even be linked to digital twins to evaluate how an office building is performing on these quality specifications before it's being built. And it's looking at acoustics, visual comfort, sizes, walking distances, all sort of detailed things. But you know, as the famed architect Mies van der Rohe said, God is in the details, and that's also true for activity-based work environments. But let me wrap it up because I'm getting lost here in details and databases. I'll repeat or summarize my contribution about activity-based working as such. I think activity-based working is for a large part about being more efficient with space. You know, you can provide less spaces, especially if you work more from home, but you also have to provide better spaces, especially in the future where you could say offices will be in competition with other places of work. So I'm not preaching here for the end of the office. I don't think that we'll witness the end of the office any day soon, but I do hope that we'll be witnessing the end of the office as a underutilized facility and a badly designed work environment. Thank you for listening to this contribution. And if you need to be in touch, just send me a mail. Thanks.
Thank you, Juriaan. So please stay online, and after the next presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So thank you once again. And now, eks siis nii nagu te olete vist juba tähele pannud, et Riigi Kinnisvara aktsiaseltsis on väga selline süstemaatiline lähenemine. Kõigepealt räägime teooriast, nagu ka eelmine plokk oli, ja siis räägime praktikast. Nüüd Juriaan rääkis meile teooriast ja mul on au kutsuda lavale Kalle Komissarov, kes on Riigi Kinnisvara aktsiaseltsi arhitekt ja tema siis räägib sellest, kuidas need sellised ideed Riigi Kinnisvara aktsiaseltsis ka praktikasse rakendatud saavad. Palun.
Tänud sissejuhatuse eest. Tere kõigile siinolijatele ja kes on liitunud meiega läbi ekraani. Et see on ülimalt intrigeeriv teema ja minu roll täna on teha tõesti ainult pisikene lühi kokkuvõte sellest ja anda veksleid välja. Tahaks sellest palju pikemalt rääkida, aga ma hoian ennast tagasi. Ja mida ma teen on siis, võib-olla avan selle eelkõneleja esitluse kontekstis, võib-olla mis on selline, kuidas see liitub siis Riigi Kinnisvara plaanidega ja milline on siis Riigi Kinnisvara plaan töökeskkondade kujundamisel tulevikus. Et ei pääse natuke laiemast sissejuhatusest, et korraks hüppame tagasi enne muisesse aega. Mina õppisin arhitektuuri ja minul olid õppejõududeks sellised vanakooli modernistid, kellel oli suhteliselt välja kujunenud mustvalge maailm. Nende jaoks oli inimesed suhteliselt standardiseeritud, nad olid keskmise mõõduga, hooned olid väga selgete tüpoloogiatesse jagatud, koolimaja oli koolimaja, söökla oli söökla, mingisuguseid halle alasid seal ei olnud. Ja ausõna, kogu ülejäänud elu on mulle ainult kinnitanud, et see on täpselt vastupidi. Et ei ole monofunktsionaalsus ei looduses ega ka inimühiskonnas üldse nagu prevaleeriv. Pigem on tegemist siis selliste paljusustega, mingite kooslustega ja inimesed teatavasti on kõik ikkagi erinevad, me oleme küll ühesugused, aga meil on erinevad soovid, erinevad vajadused, erinevad võimed ja neid tuleb nagu käsitleda ikkagi nagu indiviididena. Et kas või kõige lihtsam näide, tõenäoliselt olete kõik kokku puutunud või igapäevaselt kasutate elektriliselt tõstetavaid laudu. Et sükene vanakooli standardlaud oli ühe kõrgusega, mõnel oli seal kõrge, mõnel oli madal. Nüüd tegelikult on standard, et sa saad ise endale selle töökoha kujundada. Et selles ei ole nagu minu meelest hetkel enam midagi imelikku. Ja teine teema siis on, ütleme nüüd läheme lähemale sellele põhiteemale, et räägime töökeskkondadest, aga nüüd oleks tarvis korraks mõistet selgitada, sest et tegelikult töökeskkond võib olla igal pool. Kooliõpetaja töökeskkond on kool. Mina ütleks, et see on hetkel minu töökeskkond, kus ma olen. Ma olen valinud siia ühed pildid, mida ma hakkan ekraanil vahetama. Need on fotograafide Maris Tomba ja Kristiina Vasara tehtud. Need on erinevatest siis Riigi Kinnisvara arendatud ja hallatavatest objektidest, meie portfellist. Need on läbisegi siis ka sama erinevad kaasaegsed töökeskkondi ja ma arvan, et selle piltide põhisõnum ongi see, et need keskkonnad on erinevad. Et ma ei hakka niimoodi neid ükshaaval tutvustada, aga soovitan jälgida siis pilte ka. Ja see eestikeelne sõna keskkond on kõnekeeles rohkem nagu looduskeskkonnale suunatud, aga tõesti meie töökeskkond hõlmab nii büroosid, koole, elukeskkond tervikuna, ka kodu on meil paljudel muutunud nagu töökeskkonnaks. Et sinna ei saa piiri vahele tõmmata. Ja selle töökeskkonna kujundamine on pidev protsess. Et mina siiralt usun evolutsiooni enam kui revolutsiooni. Ja ma arvan, et kõik need ideed, mis praegu tulevad, ka eelkõneleja ideed, need on osa suuremast pildist, elu läheb edasi, see areneb. Uuteks ideedeks ta pidevalt moondub. See, et meil on hetkel selline viirusest tingitud kaugtöö nõue, see on lihtsalt üks osa sellest muutumisest. Ja kui me kuulsime ka mõned kõnelejad eespool meie Soome kolleegi, kes ütles päris muljet avaldavad numbrid, et nende hinnangutel, kus mul jäi õieti meelde, aga 3% Soome avaliku sektori töötajatest ei sooviks naasta pärast piirangute lõppumist, liikumispiirangute lõppumist tagasi kontorisse. See tähendab mingite aastate jooksul kuni poole avaliku sektori nagu tööpindade vajaduse vähenemise. Et kui see ei ole suur muutus, siis ma ei tea, mis on. Aga vaatame seda kõike ikkagi nagu pideva liikumisena ja ütleks ka nii, et ega arhitektide kogukond erialakirjelduses ei ole ka niisugust konsensust saavutanud, et milline on siis nagu üks ainuõige lähenemine, eks. Et alati tuleb see panna konteksti ja siit tulebki see konkreetne kava, mida me siin Riigi Kinnisvaras oleme nagu plaaninud ja mõelnud, et töökeskkonna muutus on kõigepealt on see mõttemuutus, sest üks osa on sellest ruumiline, see ruum, kus me oleme, mida me teeme seal, aga samamoodi on ka see lihtsalt tööharjumuse muutus ja see võib olla kas virtuaalne, tähendab seotud tehnoloogilise osaga, võib-olla tööaja osas, nagu ajaline muutus, et see on, ruumi muutus on üks osa sellest suurest tervikust. Ja selliselt me ei saa seda nagu läheneda nagu keeldude ja käskudega. Et see on pigem nagu eeskujud, see on hea praktika, hea tava, näidata, leida niisuguseid rätsepa lahendusi, suhelda kliendiga. Et siin nagu keelud sellel puhul ei tööta ja muidugi me ei ole üksi selle probleemi lahendamisel, selles mõttes, et nii nagu eelkõneleja siis esitles ühte trükist, siis samamoodi on see senati, keda on siin konverentsil läbi käinud, on nendes teemades päris kaugele jõudnud, et kindlasti tuleb seda infot omavahel jagada. Ja sellepärast esimene konkreetne lubadus ja kavapunkt, mis meil on siis eelpoolt nähtud eelkõneleja esitletud raamatu tõlkimine eesti keelde, mis ei ole siis nii-öelda käskude ja reeglite maailm, vaid see on praktika kujundamine. Tõlgime selle ära, lisame sinna Eestit puudutava peatüki, näited ja levitame seda teadmist sellisel viisil. Teine on ka siin, seal turvalisuse teemast tuli välja, on see lähteülesande teema. Et nii, et kui sa nagu alguses asja peale ei mõtle, ega siis hiljem on väga keeruline seda kõike muuta. Ja seepärast on lähteülesanne, see tegelikult püramiid seisab selle teraviku otsa peal. Ja lähteülesande puhul selles kontekstis töökeskkonnas on meil plaan suhelda aktiivselt siis senatiga, uurida täpsemalt ka, kuidas nende praktika seal on, sest et teadaolevalt on see tegelikult tervikteenus, on nii lähteülesanne, projekteerimine, ehitamine, kui ka siis see 4. komponent, see X-faktor, see, et tegelikult kui hoone on valmis, siis seda ruumi, väga nutikat ruumi võib kasutada väga loominguliselt ja üldsegi mitte nii, nagu see plaanitud on. Ja selles mõttes selle nagu kasutama õppimine on võib-olla äkki kõige kriitilisem. Ruum iseenesest ei pruugigi nii palju muuta kui kasutus selles. Et see on see mõttemalli muutus. Ja kõige selle võib-olla sooviks kokku tõmmata siis ikkagi ka nagu Riigi Kinnisvara poolse sellise hea praktika kirjeldusega või juhendina. Ehk siis oleme alustanud ja proovime seda teadmist kuidagi koondada ühte juhendisse ka, mis oleks kõigile kättesaadav nii avalikule sektorile kui ka erasektorile, et lihtsalt ka üldises plaanis tõsta seda keskmist taset, teadlikkust sellest töökeskkonnast. Alati on tipud, alati on need, kes võib-olla ei tule kaasa, aga eesmärk on nagu üldist rahva keskmist teadmist tõsta selles osas. Ja siin eelkõnelejal mainitud see activity-based office on siis eesti keeles tegevuspõhine kontor ja mina olen nüüd üle poole aasta inimkatset teinud, ma olengi tegevuspõhises kontoris töötanud ja ma ütlen, et see on väga hea kogemus olnud, et need hirmud, mis seal räägiti, näiteks see müra või see, et praktikas käib see nii, et kui ma hommikul tulen ja ma vaatan, mul on mingisugune keskendumist vajal tegevus, siis ma piilun, meil Riigi Kinnisvaras on nimelt erinevaid neid bürooalasid seal, pesasid, piilun sisse, vaatan, kui seal õudne möll käib, siis ma ei lähe, ma lähen teise kohta. Ja see ei muuda minu nagu, päeva, midagi ei kuku kokku. Et võib-olla sellega ma lõpetaksin ja neid pilte tuleb veel, aga
jätame need pildid sinna jooksma. Aitäh, Kalle!
Tänud!
Juriaan, are you still here?
See you.
I am.
Okay, very good. So now we have questions and answers. And I ask you to speak in English and...
I can speak as well.
Or you can speak in Estonian.
Hello.
So we have some questions. Like one of my colleagues from the university once said that in the universities there are no activity-based workplaces almost. And he said that I must thank God that there is an alcohol, because otherwise I would not know what the others are doing. But hopefully in the activity-based office there are more chances to talk with each other and understand what the colleagues are doing. And my first question to you, Juriaan, is, and also to you, Kalle, is that we know whom it may fit, this activity-based work, but to whom it may not fit. Please, Juriaan.
Should I go first or what? Or Kalle?
Sorry?
All right, it's me, right? Well, universities are a bit special indeed. I've been involved in a number of projects where we discussed at least the idea of activity-based working on a campus. And I think it's a bit difficult in the academia because work is very individualistic. Scientists still tend to have, especially in the humanities, have loads of books that they don't like to carry around, obviously, from place to place. And a lot of the work requires what you could say deep thinking, right? It requires concentration. So I would say that the academics are not the most obvious candidates for activity-based working. But on the other side, I also think, if I look at contemporary campuses, I also see lots of underutilized rooms in the sense that people are working from home, they're teaching, they're having one-on-one meetings with students. And some universities, it's empty corridors. So from that perspective, I think there's a lot of potential, but I think it should be a different kind of activity-based working than the average, for sure.
So, okay, we cannot force it, but it needs to come as a culture change. Kalle, küsimus sulle, question to you. Do we even have offices in 2050? So after like 30 years.
Yeah, now comes the long part. What is office? I would say we will work anyway, unfortunately. Yes. And just to comment the university part, that I have quite the opposite kind of experience from Art Academy. We always work in studios basically activity-based. And I think there is no problems at all. The space doesn't limit, just it's a mindset that it is.
And one mindset question to both of you is that if I come to the office and somebody has taken my place that I like, and I get stressed and I cannot work anymore. So do you have a solution for that?
Sad for you.
There should be plenty of good workstations available, right? That should be it. That should be the idea. And then the alternative is just going very early to the office.
Yes, I support. I mean, the one key idea is the multitude. You have to have the variety of spaces. And for example, in our office, Riigi Kinnisvara, the best place is the cafeteria to work.
Okay. But how much can you save using the activity-based workplaces? Juriaan, definitely you have some like estimations, and then I will give the floor to Kalle. Kalle can say some real numbers from Riigi Kinnisvara. So, Juriaan.
I think on an average project, you can easily save 20% of the square meters. And the question is how this is going to change after, the coronavirus, during which working from home has become much more mainstream phenomenon. So, but at least 20%, I would say.
So, Kalle, was there a real, not change, but a real save in in Riigi Kinnisvara when you
Yes.
moved from ordinary office to activity-based?
Yes, we cut half of the space,
Half of the space.
approximately. It becomes just much more efficient. Because it's not, you see, it's not only about the space, it's about the time management and the kind of activities that you do there. And it's, I think maybe the 20% is, I don't know what you meant, is it like a spatial saving or
Yeah, just purely the gross floor area, the square meters.
Okay.
So I would say if you talk about the financials, I think that the space savings are a bit offset by the investment cost per square meter should go up a bit, assuming that you are willing to invest in better space. But the 20 is a minimum. There's also in the book, there's also, it depends on how radical you are. There are projects where they go 40, 50% of square
meters.
Yes,
I agree. It's up to the courage of the client.
So
yeah,
this is good to know that it's up to the people, up to their courage. So thank you, Juriaan. Thank you, Kalle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.